Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out today. It means a lot to me, and good afternoon. But before I start my TEDx presentation, I would like to make an important announcement, and that is I'm here for two reasons. One, they wanted someone really enlightened and eloquent to show up. Second, he didn't show up. Thank you. But jokes apart, I'm here because I'm an entrepreneur that is based out of the Middle East and that has been doing comedy professionally in India for the last 10 years. And when I started my journey as a comedian, I often got asked the question, why? And from the heart, I think I did comedy, or I started doing stand-up because I just wanted to share my experiences that I've gone through in a funny way, and I didn't know I would land up as a professional stand-up. I just thought connecting with people in a humorous way is a fun thing, and I'm here today because of that. The other reason why I think humor is useful, and I think most of you know this, humor is useful in all kinds of relationships. It's useful at work, it's useful at home. I mean, simple things like even traveling from point A to point B in Bangalore, an hour and a half, you need to consume humor, right? Like they give you a boarding pass when you start from this place. You don't get any more tickets, right? That's what happens out here. And I just think people like people who are funny, and you guys know this. I'll tell you what happened along the line. There's enough information about there why people need to do comedy, but I got asked a more profound question, and that is, how do you do your business and comedy together? And that's what made me really think. And sometimes I got told maybe you're pressed too thin, maybe you're neglecting one or the other, and then a very powerful statement was told to me once, Adnan, you're a jack of all trades. When I thought about that deeply, I don't know if the person was complimenting me or dissing me. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this saying, jack of all trades. And in recent times, jack of all trades is someone who does a little bit of everything. And it doesn't have necessarily the most positive connotation to it. But check this out. I went up on Wikipedia and typed up jack of all trades, and guess what popped up? Master of none. But wait a second. This is the full form. But oftentimes better than a master of one. I was zapped. What basically I realized is that the original phrase or adage was, but oftentimes better than a master of one, has been removed over a period of time. And only the first line was used in a casual manner. And I started doing more research about who I am, and I want to share my life journey and share about who I am and how I reached here, so I can tell you how I managed to do both, and that is be a businessman and be a professional stand-up comedian. So a little bit about my history and my past. I grew up in a place called Muscat, Oman, but I came into being because of these two beautiful people. That's my father, Mr. Yusuf Nalwala, who's a sheikh, and my mom, my beautiful mother, Rashida Nalwala. Now, there's a reason why I put this picture up is because when they got married in Mumbai, the first year they spent their lives together was in Bangalore. So that's Bangalore 45 years ago. And whoever knew that 45 years later, their son would be doing a TED Talk out here. So life works out in a funny way. Very early on in my life, I knew that I wanted to be in show business. And clearly that picture demonstrates that, or maybe not. But I had that bug, and I was very clear, and I went up to my mom and dad that, listen, when I grow up, I want to be an actor. And because of the conservative family that I am brought up in, my parents said, no, you'll not be an actor, you can be a contractor. Right, that's what I do, and clearly that was my reaction when they said, no, you can't be. And as I was growing up, I realized that I have to pursue my passion and subliminally give out this message that I do this. Moving forward, in high school, when I graduated, I did get the award for Mr. Humorous from my school. I went to Indian School Muscat, which had 7,000 students, and my graduating batch had 400. So I was the recipient of this. And I also tried to have a dash at modeling. Okay, and surprisingly, I also won the Best Actor Award when I was, or rather Best Supporting Actor Award in high school. And here's the truth, ladies and gentlemen, many years later down the line, I did get a chance for modeling, and it was for shoes. But that doesn't matter. I got the break. Going through this, I realized that I was passing out messages to the world and the people around me that, look, I've got this bug and I can do it, but at the same time, I could not disappoint my parents and my family because they came from a strong academic background. What I decided to do is when I finished up my high school, I said I'm going to go and study in the US, and that is, from my understanding, the mecca of comedy. Some of the best talent that comes out in the world is from the US. So I made sure I went to the US, and what I want to do on this slide is also show you where Muscat, Oman is, because when the first time I landed in the US and I said I'm from Muscat, Oman, the reaction I got was, what, you're Russian? Moscow? I said, no, Muscat, Oman. So this is for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is where I'm from, and I flew 27,000 miles, 28 hours, 25 years ago to Arizona, which is another desert, graduated with honors, and 7 years later, I realized I haven't fulfilled my entire dreams of spending time in the US, because this time I'd only covered the West Coast. 7 years later, I went back to the US and did my master's from Boston University, and I did it in MBA. I did an MBA in finance. Now, I'd like to give you a little bit more background about me. While I was doing this, I enrolled in a program that allowed me to live in 6 countries and travel to over 40. And because I was constantly gathering these experiences, that's when I decided to put all of this together and give a go at comedy. Cut to 2009. Saying this very respectfully and very humbly, I was the first Indian comedian to go and do an open mic in Mumbai at a place called Jazz by the Bay. And that was an open mic for people who perform as a musician. They were guitarists, they were saxophonists, and they were pianists, and they were guys who would sing. I was the only guy that went up to an open mic and said, I want to do stand-up comedy. And shockingly, they didn't even know what it was. So I had to break the shackles and explain to them what it is. And I said, just let me show you. So while there was food being served and all kinds of beverages being served, I had to yell and scream for people's attention. And guess what? After the 10 minutes, there were some people sitting in front, and they said, we like what you said. You were really funny. When is your next show? Believe me, that's when I realized I can do this. Thank you. It was a big deal. I was among the first few that did it. Thank you. Cut to 4 years later, there was a venue developed in India called the Comedy Store. It then later on became the Canvas Laugh Factory. And I performed over there the first English comedy show called Kabibi Habibi. We were the first set of, there were two other comedians and me that performed over there, and we were the first people that actually opened up the entry for all comedians to perform. Before that, they were not allowing Indian comedians to perform. It was only international comedians. I was among the first few people who did this, and I didn't know my life would lead me there. I was just doing comedy as a passion and as a hobby, and as you can see, my face keeps changing. That's when I was trying out. That's when I said, oh wow, this is working out. And that's my 250th show. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still doing this. Doesn't stop. And that's me doing my almost close to my 500 show, and where 500 people attended. I was shocked. I was like, you guys got nothing better to do. And it was a ticketed event in Dubai. You know, life just panned out in an interesting way. So that is my journey as a comedian. So like the slide says, I didn't know my journey as a comedian would keep continuing to grow, and I didn't know so many shows would be coming to me, and I didn't know ever I would sell tickets. I promise you that, I'm saying this very humbly, I never thought I would be able to sell tickets worth $40 or $50 to a crowd when I started out, and I'm really thankful for that. And here's what's amazing. My parents, who were very conservative, who were not for me doing this, actually started feeling so proud about the fact that I'm a comedian, and this is a true story. And I feel some of the best comedy comes out of the truth. I was traveling with my mom in Cyprus a few years ago, and we had gone for a wedding, and one of the groom's family comes up and asks my mother, we heard your third son's got some kind of talent. He's really, he's doing something different. Can you tell us what he does? And my mom could not contain her happiness. My mom was so ecstatic. She was like, my third son is very special. Maro Dikro Adnan is a stand-by comedian. Right! And the way life's turned out is I am a stand-by comedian because I do full-time entrepreneurship. While I was doing comedy and running my business, I also thought about how do I use myself more? How do I do more things? Right? I co-created a game called Spill It with my brother Ibrahim. And this game's basically a set of questions, 50 set of questions that you can ask people and get to know them in a fun way. I did this while I was working and doing stand-up. I was also an RJ for a year in Oman for a radio station called TFM, and I had my own show called Comically Speaking. And I was co-hosting it, but the point is, someone once told me I have a radio personality. I don't know if that was a compliment or a diss, but guess what? I ended up being an RJ also. And while I was running my business, I wanted to add some more things to my portfolio of business, and I did become a broker. I became a registered broker in Dubai, and that business made me go broke because the whole real estate market went tanked. But I learned a lot, and I also added a media company to my portfolio, which didn't work out. But I remember this famous line that my dad told me, Adnan, do whatever you want provided the outcome is income. So I was doing that as well, and I can show you I learned a lot from my failures. After that, since my name grew in the Middle East, and because I was one of the first few comedians in India, I was approached by a lot of junior comedians saying, can you teach us the ropes? I conducted several workshops, and guess what? None of them are there anywhere, but that's not the point. I tried creating a workshop as well, where I imparted knowledge on how people can become better comedians. And I'll tell you what's shocking. I became a better one because I was focusing on the tricks. Now, while doing all these things, I was saying, I'm working, I'm burning candles at both ends, I'm using my creative self. How do I torture myself more? So I decided to do a lot of physical races that require a lot of indulgence of your body. I did the Tough Mudder, which is a 16-kilometer race with 20 obstacles. I did skydiving. Can you believe this? My wife bought me a birthday gift saying jump off a plane. Clearly she loves me a lot, right? I did the Spartan, which is again a race where you have to involve yourself. I've done a marathon, and I've also done a triathlon, Olympic triathlon. Yes, I tried to be an athlete. That's why I call myself a triathlete. Having said that, now you guys must be thinking, this guy's done these things, and there are probably a varied skill sets required to do this. On the contrary, while it might seem that there is a large skill set to do this, the core attributes to do what I've done stay the same. Sure, I'm an entrepreneur, okay? And I think an entrepreneur has, 4 distinct qualities. One of them is being financially savvy, and I'm not going to read out the other 3, but yes, he's got to get numbers. Sure, I'm a comedian, which means you got to be funny. But the essence is there are many other overlapping points which a person can have, and if you use them, you can do many things. And that is my message to you today, that do things. I want to highlight 3 characteristics. They're listed 9, but I think that make a big impact, and I think it's universal. First thing, be courageous. You will have people who will say you're not good enough. You will have people who say you can't do this. You will have people say you can't do so many things. Don't listen to them. Just do it. And not everything in life has to be commercially driven. I didn't do a marathon to get a big paycheck. I did it because I felt good. I didn't get up on stage the first time because I wanted to, become a big star. I just wanted to make people laugh. And for that, you need courage. If you apply that, you can do anything. The second thing is have energy. Energy is the most important thing. If you are an energetic person, people will come to you. You will send out positive vibes, and energy will drive you to do many things. Successful businessmen sleep for 4 hours. Good entertainers work 20 hours a day. You guys know this. These attributes are universal. And the last thing is curious. Be curious. Ask questions, because if you ask questions, you get content for comedy, and you also find ways of improving your business. Now you're saying, okay, this guy's given information about himself. There's a little bit of subliminal boasting. I don't know if it's true. This doesn't make sense. I'll tell you what, I've got testimony for this theory, which I've created with my wife, by the way. This is a Venn diagram which I've created with my wife. I spent a lot of time on it, and I thought I'd share it with you. But I would like to bring out testimony and bring out the big guns about my theory, about jack of all trades. Big guns starting out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He literally has big guns. Now, what I mean by this is Arnold Schwarzenegger a bodybuilder? Is Arnold Schwarzenegger a governor? Is Arnold Schwarzenegger an actor? Is he a jack of all trades? Donald Trump, the most talked about person in the world. He was a businessman or is a businessman. He is a billionaire. He has been a TV host show of Apprentice. He's been a wrestler. I think that's every child's dream. And now he's the president. Is he a jack of all trades? Volodymyr Zelensky, he's become extremely famous. Some of you might not have heard this. He is the current president of Ukraine. And prior to this, he was the famous stand-up comedian in his country. So is he a jack of all trades? Now the next and last example that I'm going to bring is probably the most relatable one out here in Bangalore to us Indians is Mahatma Gandhi. Most of us only know him as the father of our nation and the one who provided us freedom. But did you know Mahatma Gandhi was actually a barrister who lived in South Africa that started the freedom cause because he got thrown out of a train because he was not a first-class citizen of that country. Now, is he a jack of all trades? I want all of you to think about this and think about the whole message which I've been trying to tell you, and that is, if you do many things in life, you will gain a lot of experiences. And a wealthy man is not someone that has a lot of money, but a person who has a lot of experiences and that can do things in a fun way, not worrying about the outcome. Just be passionate, have fun, and you'll be surprised the way life turns out, because I never knew when I started out my comedy, I would be here talking in front of you guys, and I'd be doing it for 10 years, and I'd be managing my business and doing stand-up comedy at a professional level. So having said that, I've come up with a small new quote which I'd like to share with you, and that is, jack of all trades and master of none, scratch that. I think it's the new king. Thank you very much. My name's Adnan Nalwala. You guys have been a great crowd. Thank you very much.